So, you're thinking about learning German? You might assume the first thing you need to do is grab a textbook or download an app. But today, we're going to start somewhere else entirely, with something that's way more powerful: your motivation. So, let's just kick things off with a question, just for you. Seriously, forget about grammar for a minute and just ask yourself, what is your personal, deep down reason for wanting to learn? Because honestly, having that answer is probably the single most important tool you can have. And to show you just how powerful that why can be, let's dive into a story. This is about Professor James Pfrehm, an expert in German and linguistics, who, well, he found his motivation in a pretty unexpected way. Okay, so picture this. It's 1993. A 16-year-old James signs up for an exchange trip to Germany. A year later, he's at a dance studio and meets a young woman named Katharina. And right there, everything changed. For the next year, German wasn't just some subject in school for him, it was a bridge. He spent hours, dictionary in hand, just trying to write letters to her. And the real test? The next spring, she flew all the way to his high school in Oregon, and for 2 weeks, they spoke nothing but German. That connection, that became his reason. So now that we're feeling inspired by that why, let's tackle the what. And one of the very first things you're going to run into when you're learning German is this thing called grammatical gender. And yeah, it can be a real puzzle at first. See, in English, we keep it simple. We've got one word, the. Easy enough. But in German, you've got three. Every single noun is either masculine, feminine, or neuter. And you've got to use der, die, or das to match. So you don't just learn the word arm, you have to learn der Arm. It's not just hand, it's die Hand. Oh, and you probably noticed that arm, hand, and house are all capitalized. That's another one of those core rules in German. It doesn't matter what the noun is, der Computer, die Milch, das Bier, every single one is capitalized, always, no exceptions. So at this point, you're probably asking the million-dollar question. How on earth are you supposed to know the gender of every single noun? Do you really have to just memorize all of them? Well, the honest answer is yeah, for a lot of words you do. But, and this is a big but, thankfully, there are some pretty reliable patterns that can give you a huge head start. Okay, here's your first hack, and it's a super logical one. When a noun is talking about a person, the grammatical gender almost always follows their biological sex. So, der Mann for man, die Frau for woman. It even works for jobs. A male professor is der Professor, but a female professor is die Professorin. That little in at the end, that is a dead giveaway for feminine. Super useful. All right, our next hack is all about looking at the ending of a word, the suffix, which can be a massive clue. And these patterns are incredibly reliable. If a word ends in heit, kite, schaft, or ong, you can be pretty sure it's feminine. Endings like er or, they usually mean it's a masculine noun. And words that end in chin or ment are almost always neuter. Seriously, think of these as little cheat codes for German grammar. And here's a fun one. It's a little weird, but it's surprisingly easy to remember. For whatever reason, almost all hard alcoholic drinks in German are masculine. You've got der Whiskey, der Gin, der Vodka. Even the word for an alcoholic drink in general is der Drink. Why? I have no idea, but it's a trick that totally works. Let's go back and look at one of those suffixes we just saw, chen. This one is probably my favorite. You can tack it onto a noun to make it mean small or cute. So der Hund, which is a masculine noun for the dog, becomes das Hundchen, which means the little dog or the puppy. And here's the magic part. Any noun you add chen to automatically becomes neuter. Every single time. All right, so we've got a handle on gender. Let's move on to the next big hurdle for beginners: how to actually say things. German pronunciation can seem a little intimidating, but a few key rules make it so much easier. These 4 letters tend to trip up English speakers the most, so let's just break them down real quick. The German J sounds like the Y in yes, so Januar is Januar. The V, that sounds like an F, so Vater, which means father, sounds like Vater. Now the W is where our V sound comes in, so Wein or wine sounds like Vine. And finally, the Z is a sharp T sound, kind of like the end of the word cats, so Zeit, which means time, is Zeit. Now for a classic pronunciation mistake, one that was actually immortalized in a famous song. Back in 1963, the one and only Wayne Newton sang Danke schön. And look, it's a great song, but from a language perspective, it's kind of a legendary blunder. Because the correct phrase is Dankeschön. That the O with the two dots over it, the umlaut, that sound is tricky. But here's the secret. Shape your lips like you're about to say oo, but then, with your mouth in that shape, try to make an E sound with your tongue. It brings the sound right to the front of your mouth. Go on, try it. Oo, schön. Not Shane, but schön. Okay, so we've talked a bit about how the language actually works. But where in the world is this journey going to take you? Let's zoom out for a second and take a look at German-speaking Europe. You might think it's just Germany, right? But German's reach is actually way bigger. It's an official language in 5 different European countries. Germany, of course, but also Austria, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Luxembourg. And here's a look at the scale of it. I mean, Germany is the heavyweight for sure, with over 82 million speakers. But then you add Austria with over 8 million, and Switzerland with over 6 million native German speakers. And it all adds up to make German the second most spoken native language in all of Europe. And hey, while we're talking about Switzerland, here's a fantastic piece of trivia for you. How many official capital cities does Switzerland have? The answer is 0. Yep, 0. The city of Bern acts as the capital, but it's not actually written into the Swiss constitution. Just a cool little quirk about a very unique country. So we've gone through some grammar, some pronunciation, a little geography, but now let's bring it all back home, right back to where we started, to the most important question of all. I love this quote from Professor Pfrehm. He says, "I know it's kind of corny and innocent, but that's how I found my motivation." It just gets right to the heart of it, you know? His reason wasn't about getting a good grade or for a job. It was about connecting with another person. And that's the fuel that got him through all the tricky grammar and all those new sounds. Look, learning a language is a journey, and any good journey needs a destination, a real reason to keep putting one foot in front of the other. For Professor Pfrehm, it was writing letters to Katharina. So the real question is, what's your story going to be?